Welcome to Work, Learn, Repeat, the Cooperative and Experiential Education podcast from the University of Waterloo, where we explore work-integrated learning and what's needed to prepare students, employers, and educators for the future of work. Today, we're speaking with the Director of Student and Faculty Relations and Cooperative Education, Dr. Richard Wikkerink, and Senior Manager, Work-Integrated Learning Programs, Ben McDonald. Engagement is a term we hear all over the place. Social media engagement, stakeholder engagement. In the context of cooperative and experiential education, what do we mean by engagement?
Well, for co-op, one of the things we really focus on is how do we connect with our students? How do we connect with them where they're at? And the purpose of connecting with students is really for us to grow and develop the conditions that matter for student thriving on our campus. So student thriving is this concept of really how do you lean fully into developing all the skills, abilities, your own sense of meaning and purpose in life, and that at the end of your degree program, that you feel that you've actually made a difference in your own life and that you feel good about your experience and that you've grown. And that concept of thriving underpins for me the sense of engagement. So how are we connecting with students so that they begin to see how their co-op and their work experiences connect to their learning, how the activities that are involved in outside of classroom also matter to their overall learning and development while they're at university.
And you can talk a little bit more about the engagement that we offer through the experiences in co-op.
Sure, I think that some of the pieces that we do around engagement are very practical. It's just connecting with students. They've got a flood of information that's being thrown at them all the time. They're hearing from their peers, from their family, from their faculty members. There's a lot of noise out there. One of the engineering faculty members always talks about how do we reduce the signal to noise ratio so that the information that we want them to connect with or that they want to connect with and learn more about, how do we do that? So some of the things we do is we are very intentional about connecting with them through the PD courses, the professional development courses that we do. We assign advisors to them that will stay with them for the balance of their program and develop a relationship with them. We also try to connect them with jobs that are going to be meaningful for them, that provide them with that array of things that are going to connect with what matters to them, how they want to see themselves show up in the world, both now, but also in the future.
And what is the value of offering engagement through the work term experiences as part of the students' learning?
That's really that opportunity for students to develop their own sense of meaningful purpose in their life. My wish for students is that they find meaningful work experiences, and that meaningful work experience changes from first work term to the end of their program when they might think very differently about it. So for some students, they come in and they know exactly what they're going to do. And they go out to the workplace and they find out, wow, what I've always dreamed about, I love doing. And I want to do more of it. Other students are going to go out to the workplace and go, oh, this isn't what I wanted at all. I want something different. So it gives them that opportunity to kind of be curious, explore different things, to meet different employers, to try different places of work, to look at different locations for work, to try different occupations, different industries, because you could have one type of job in working in a manufacturing plant, and you might be doing some programming there, and you go over to another industry and you're doing programming and it's completely different applications. And that's so true for all of the different programs that we offer here.
And what about the skill development? Because not all our students come in first year with all the skills that they might need for that particular career that they have their eye on.
That's one of the things I think that we really need to focus on is really this developmental angle. Students come in, they're 18, 19 years old, they're still growing and developing in their skills. And one of the things that our employers really value are some of the skills that I would consider essential. How are we growing students in their teamwork abilities, in their intercultural effectiveness? How are they communicating with people outside of their own community and culture? How can students strengthen their interpersonal skills? And workplaces have different expectations about how one engages and connects at work, showing up on time, some of those kinds of things are areas where students grow and develop. And then also learning what it is to meet the expectations of the employer around completing tasks on time, or going above and beyond. How are they going to bring their problem-solving skills? So it's all of that application of skills that they've been acquiring in the classroom, and then bringing them forward into the workplace. The other thing that we do is we have regular conversations with our students about how are they doing with this the development of skills. So when a student completes a work term, their employer provides them with assessment on their future ready talent framework. We'll go through a list of all of the skills that we're looking for students to develop, and the employer's assessing them. How are they doing? And was that skill something that was developed in this workplace? So they've got that. We also invite students through their workplace check-ins that we do with them through the advising staff and through our systems. What kind of skills do you want to develop? What kind of goals do you have? So that students can be intentional about saying, well, this is at this work term, I want to develop my teamwork skills, or I want to develop my communication skills. And how can they effectively do that in the workplace? And then receive some coaching from the employer in the work term.
And those reflections, Ben, I'll have you talk to this, working in the Center for Work Integrated Learning, that reflection after a work term experience, that almost helps them get their resume ready for that next term of recruitment, because they're doing that reflection and talking about those skills.
Yeah, absolutely it does. So I think, that learning that occurs when a student is moving through that space of engagement in whatever experience they're having, let's say a co-op work term, the end of that, whether it be within the PD course, whether it be conversations with their employer, and the student performance evaluation, the future ready talent framework, these pieces are all set up there, not as points in time necessarily, but iterative spaces for students to learn where they're at. And then what happens from there is, within the structures that exist, the supports that are there to catalyze that space, reflection occurs. And that's a space in which students will see what happened, what can I make meaning of this, how can I take what I've experienced there and start to apply it to other spaces. So essentially they're taking their existing skills, the knowledge and the abilities they have, and they're abstracting it from one context into another. And it brings that skill development from one place to another and brings experience along the way. So when they're talking about resumes or their next steps, it gives them the opportunity to put those pieces down. The other thing we do as part of the preparation for these engagement opportunities is set students up by preparing them for those aspects. Be it resume creation, be it the identification and articulation of their skills. All of those pieces are set up so that students can engage meaningfully from the get-go. And really, I think our role here at CEE broadly, or cooperative and experiential education, is to support students in taking action, to enable them to catalyze those experiences and encourage them along the way. And I think that's what all the structures that you've mentioned help to do.
One thing that we didn't mention yet is really the connection back to the classroom. And one of the things that we do in terms of preparation is in all programs we make available a skill articulation workshop. And faculty members are able to take that workshop. We deliver it. Students reflect on what kind of skills are they learning in this class. And sometimes those are the nebulous things, like what are the skills that you're learning here. Helping students articulate those skills in the classroom allows them to see what's happening in all of the assignments that they're doing, how that's contributing overall to their skill development. So that it's not just a static piece of learning to complete an assignment, but that assignment is contributing overall to their skill development throughout their program. And it's been a really, really effective tool, because students are able to say, well, this is the skill I'm acquiring this term. I will be able to talk about, in sciences, for example, my wet lab skills I'm going to have at the end of this term. I don't have them today, but I will have them at the end of the term, so that when I'm going into that work term, I know what I'm going to have ahead of time. And those things have been some of the really sparkling gems, I think, in the way that we're preparing students for the workplace.
Well, even helping students understand that, so many of them dread group work. And some courses are but they don't understand that that's setting them up for success in teamwork. And, we all know from our jobs, there is lots of group work, and those skills come in handy, but they don't necessarily see it when they're in the moment in the classroom. So helping them do that makes a lot of sense. So University of Waterloo is known for its co-op program. We were founded in 1957 with co-op as part of the program that has grown across all 6 faculties and more than 120 programs. Why co-op?
For me, co-op is really that opportunity for students to explore, to use their skills of curiosity, to identify what kind of skills they want to apply and use, how those skills and abilities are attached to their interests, so that they're ready for a world of work that is rapidly changing, that they're prepared for jobs that do not exist today, but will exist in their lifetime, that they're ready for a diversity of work. And I think that the other piece is really that consistent development of skills throughout their term. As they grow and learn about their own identity and learn about what interests them, that is changeable. That changes for all of us over our lifetimes in terms of things that we're interested in or abilities that we want to explore. That journey through, I think, is something that we want to encourage students, that we kind of spark their interest, spark their curiosity, and that the world of work isn't just a transactional thing, but it's a place that can be transformational for them, and also for the communities in which they live and work in, and for the professions that they're involved in, that they're making a difference, solving problems in the world. And that co-op provides students with that opportunity. Students who start co-op, sometimes they'll start off saying, I want to be X. And at the end they go, oh wow, there's so many different applications out there that I don't necessarily want to be X anymore, but there's just all these really cool opportunities that I never imagined existed.
You mentioned transformational aspects of co-op, and I want to harp on that for just a second, as I was once a co-op student myself. I came here and my initial plan was to go be a pilot. I had the dream of working as a bush pilot in the north of Canada and living this remote and wild lifestyle. As it turns out, and I quickly found this out, I have terrible motion sickness. And so co-op for me was the first pivot I made to find other options. As you put it, exploring those pathways forwards and finding what could work was my experience. I had the chance to work in consulting. I had the chance to go internationally, work with an international consulting firm in a business space. Then I came here and actually worked for the University of Waterloo and found a real passion for education. And that has actually settled me into the potential career that I was interested in moving forward with. And to go from motion sickness and pilot-like options to working in education and finding pathways for students and enabling them was never a path I expected. In fact, I grew up with a mother as a teacher, and so education was not a place I ever wanted to land. But for me, the co-op pathway allowed me to explore those options and gave me the chance to develop skills that would be really critical for me in the infancy of my career, and now are still relevant for me. Things like problem solving, you mentioned teamwork. Here we sit in a room together, never go away. And so even in those jobs that don't exist yet, we are absolutely developing skills that are critical to students and their future success as employees, as titans of industry that they may become. So I think co-op is a critical aspect, and for the 70% or so of our students that are engaged in that space, a really meaningful opportunity for them to engage and then reflect, of course, on how they might use that, because that's what was critical for me in figuring out how do I translate these co-op opportunities into what is my next step? What do I want to do when I graduate?
And so speaking of that step, your role in the Center for Work Integrated Learning is working with the EDGE program. Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, for sure. So for those 30% of our undergrad students who aren't in a co-op program, there is an opportunity for them to opt into an optional certificate program. EDGE was conceived and created in 2017 for students who don't have access to the traditional co-op. So some programs that don't have co-op sequences, like biomedical sciences or others, don't necessarily have built in the structures that will allow for them. Within their courses, there are plenty of opportunities, of course, but we wanted to accentuate and add on to that with existing programming. and new programming. So the EDGE program was born out of that. It is a certificate made up of 6 milestones. So students will first actually engage in that skills identification and articulation workshop that Richard spoke about earlier, that's embedded in some courses and taught outside of it as workshops. From there, students take a modified version of a career development course called PD1 that's specifically targeted to those students, where they're at and what they're doing. The students have access to this course throughout their time, and so they can pick and choose when they take it. So if they're, for example, about to go start looking for a job, maybe for the summer, they can jump into that PD course in, say, the fall term. From there are the 3 working community experiences. These are the students' will or work integrated learning experiences, and they are subtly, not so subtly different than, say, a traditional co-op term, but also similar in some ways. So students are required to do 3 of them, meaning we'll see a sequence of students engaging, similar to co-op, but the duration and intensity of the experiences is very different than the robust nature of co-op. So students can find volunteer roles, they can find part-time work, and all of these things will typically qualify as an experience. It's an opportunity for them to still explore the wide array and opportunity of things that exist both inside and outside of classrooms. So if a student is engaged in an internship as part of their program, that could be something that also counts towards the EDGE certificate. Okay. When a student goes through these aspects and through these first 5 milestones, we've seen tremendous generation of talent, of interest, and of what comes next. And so the way we built it was that the final component would be a capstone workshop. Students who have completed the previous 5 milestones are then eligible and able to enroll into this workshop, where essentially they're going to tie everything together. So when we talk about purposeful work and we talk about engagement, we're really leaning into how do we create context from that engagement, how do students reflect? Mm-hmm. That's what this workshop is. It brings together all of those pieces. It's an opportunity for students to build out what is that action plan post-graduation. And maybe for some that's grad school. Maybe they already know, but they may not know what comes after grad school. What's their target beyond that? They may know immediately, like you said, some students come and they know exactly what they want to do. Maybe they wanted to be that pilot, and maybe they don't get motion sickness and that works out for them. But they still have a space where they can build out what that action plan looks like, from a high degree of specificity to I still want to explore my options. And so for students who have had these experiences, who've gone through preparatory activities, and who have engaged meaningfully, they now have the opportunity to pull it all together. And that's done in tandem with a pair of career advisors from our Center for Career Development who help to facilitate conversations with small groups of students so that they can not only learn from experts in that field of building career, but also see what their peers are doing. Okay. And that gives them context for where they're at positionally, how their skills are faring, and where they see themselves versus, say, others. It gives them the opportunity, in that contrast, to understand what is it that I need to do next. What do I have that others don't? What do others have that I don't? And where can I build upon that and find my next step? Overall, the certificate's been offered since 2017, and we've seen several hundred students graduate with it. But the really nice part is for our students who engage in it, whether they complete the entire thing and receive the certificate, or whether they just do a milestone or 2, it gives them the flexibility and the opportunity to engage, which here at CEE is our mechanism to encourage and enable students to do that actionable item. And so whether a student participates in the whole, which is our ideal state, of course, or just a small portion, it's an opportunity for us to help make an impact on how students will move forwards in their career.
Well, and another program that Center for Will is very involved in is one that was kind of born out of the pandemic to help some of those students in a time that was a little more difficult economically. And that was the Waterloo Experience Accelerate, or We Accelerate program. What is it, and why are we still doing it today? Because the pandemic has passed.
Yeah, absolutely. So We Accelerate, as you mentioned, born from the pandemic, was a response to declining employment rates, especially amongst first work term students. You know, as students were coming into university, they'd had less and less experience because of the pandemic. That ripple is still having an impact and will still have an impact for years to come. But for the program to continue to offer operational value to students, we've modified and adjusted it post-pandemic based on the types of skills that are most relevant for students. Okay. So we're still targeting first work term students who may be struggling to find that traditional first work term co-op opportunity. But the goal of the program remains the same, and it's to build up the skills that are necessary for students to succeed in their next co-op term. So students will go through the program. It's organized by stream and sort of by theme. So we have a stream on AI and Azure. We have a stream on digital bootcamp fundamentals. All of these aspects are designed based on a survey that was completed, an analysis of over 70,000 jobs to see what are the skills employers are looking for. We took those and have built out what those streams look like. Once a student has opted into the program, they'll go through a series of career programming aspects that are designed to build up their confidence, set up themselves to understand those components of reflection and what are they doing and what comes next. They'll also engage in approximately 100 hours of skill development training. These are aspects that we bring industry in to help us build. And so we know they're extremely valuable. We build in certifications for students as part of that so that those students are able to put those pieces on their resume and speak to effectively. And then from there, there's 120 hours of, and here comes the team-based piece again, team-based real-world project experience. So we bring in projects from industry, and a team of 4 to 5, sometimes 6 students will engage together to help solve those problems that industry has brought forwards to them. Depending on the stream, that might look like working with companies that are in the AI field. It might also be with a startup looking at how to improve their social media presence. So depending on the stream and the nature of the particular aspect that they're engaged in, the problems will vary. After that, they go back to that career programming. They look back at what happened, what did it mean, why does it matter, and how do I move that forwards into my next opportunity. Early in the pandemic and for the first 3 terms, we were really rigorous with tracking students. And the Work Learn Institute actually did a study on the program. What they determined was that students who engage in this program versus are unemployed for that term, we see those students move into their next term, into their next recruitment term, finding earlier employment with more senior employment. And those pieces typically correlate to higher rates of pay for those students. These pieces are all critical for what comes next as part of the sequence in co-op, and it essentially returns them back into that space of that normal sequence in finding roles and exploring their opportunities with impact and meaning.
So it was a research-backed venture, and then we've done research to say this is working and helping students. Do we hear things from students that have completed the We Accelerate program where they feel stronger in their second co-op term and more hopeful?
Yeah, so we routinely collect information and surveys from students. We also hire students who participate as team leads in the program to organize groups. And some of our team leads have actually come out of students who've been in the We Accelerate program. And so we've heard both anecdotally from them, but also capturing surveys from students. There's a high rate of satisfaction with the program and a common thread that is the experience is really valuable for them to get into. While not always their first option, it creates meaning for them, and those pieces that I talked about for early employment and the opportunity to really seek out what that next job will be are threads that the students themselves see. So coming out of it with certifications, coming out of it with experience, with that team-based approach, there's meaning for them to be able to apply. And what we see commonly throughout the feedback in those pieces is while there's room for us to always improve, there is meaning and value to the program, and that's part of why we've kept it as a sustainable and now operational program for the future.
So you've talked about a pretty rigorous preparation for the We Accelerate program for students. In general, and we've talked a little bit about some of our professional development courses, how do we prepare students for this engagement portion of their learning? Because it's if you've never had a job and you sit in a classroom, that can sometimes be a hard transition.
Yeah, we look at a number of different approaches, and I think some of the things we do is we have some workshops that are provided by our Center for Career Development around how do I get ready for my first workplace. We also really encourage our employers to think of themselves as co-educators in this process. How are they helping students get ready for their first workplace? What are some of the things that they can do to make a student feel welcome, but also clarify what are the expectations of the workplace and to be part of that journeying forward with them. Some of the things that we're doing within our own unit is trying to be our best employers ourselves. So the onboarding that we do for the about 25 co-op students that our unit collectively hires, our department hires in the each term, we're trying out the different things that help students get ready for the workplace and that they're that they're equipped to be successful in the workplace. We encourage our employers to really be very descriptive in their job descriptions in terms of what's the job about, what's the company about, and then also what is the responsibilities that a student's going to have in the work term, so that students really have a good sense of what's going on. We're creating networks for students as well to talk to each other about what does it look like to be a first work term student. We have senior students coming back for presentations into either classrooms or seminars that we host outside of classes, just to talk about the work experience. That they know that being anxious or a little bit worried or uptight with your first day of work is perfectly normal and it's okay. And it gets better as you go. And we have, I think, overall a really great group of employers that understand that they are there to provide a student with a great opportunity, and that they're looking for definitely deliverables in a work term. This is not something that they're just not getting a value out of. They're looking for a benefit, but they also know that the benefit for them is about exposing students to different kinds of work. Our students come in, they've got a lot of skills, and the employers are helping them apply them in meaningful ways in the workplace. So the employer benefits and the student benefits from that growth as well.
And Ben, can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits that employers see, even in the short-term pieces that edges, because some might think that's too short a time to really get much of a benefit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can share a quick anecdote, which is we've had an edge student save another student's life in a clinic. And so, there's obvious and immediate impacts depending on the situations and the scenarios. And not all experiences are going to involve things that are life-threatening. And in fact, hopefully most of them do not. The opportunity for employers, I think, to see value and to sort of build out from there, it starts obviously with the skills that the students can bring to the table and the problems they can solve. It's the fresh perspective they offer. It's they come with, let's say you're a marketing firm. You're going to want those fresh perspectives, and you're going to want the understanding that those students bring of their generation, of what's going on at the heart of sort of their work and their world. Above and beyond that, whether it's a short-term experience like Edge, whether it's a more robust or rigorous experience like Co-op, it's not just once. And this is a critical piece, I think, as part of the puzzle, is the opportunity is there to work with a student team, a student group, whether it's in courses, Co-op, Edge, We Accelerate, etc. But you can return on that investment as well. So coming back and seeing we've solved this problem, but left this piece open. There's an opportunity to build in, bring in students for those new problems that emerge as a result of that, and iteratively. Not only will you see students improve because of your coaching, your feedback, your mentorship, etc., but you're going to see the product improve from what students are able to deliver as part of that. More and more, I think, there's an opportunity for our employers, industry, and community partners to engage with students through a menu of opportunities. At the most rigorous and at the most impactful is always going to be our co-op program. And that's always going to stand there. Not all of our employers are able to jump straight to that, of course. They may want things like even a guest lecture is going to create connection and value for an employer. But something like an Edge experience, a project with We Accelerate, these pieces are going to offer intake for the employers into partnerships with the university and access to the new talent. It also is an opportunity to shape that talent. So in providing feedback either to the institution, to students, etc., you're going to help guide the employment, the force of employment for the future. You're going to be able to sort of generate the opportunity for, these are the skills we're looking for. Yes, we need teamwork. Yes, we need problem solving, but we need specific pieces in AI.
Right.
And so there's opportunities for feedback in other places for us to then build those components in. We're routinely looking, saying We Accelerate, for what are those next skills? Mm-hmm. What are the streams that we need to create in order to ensure that there's relevance for our students? So one that we're working on right now, with significant shifts to AODA and accessibility in web content and other spaces, we're building a stream that will help students be able to provide reports, generate projects, and showcase ways in which we can either build greater compliance or move towards that kind of accessible content, et cetera. Yeah.
And so if you could sum it up, How do these experiences best prepare not only our students, but our employers too, for the future of work, which we know is a lot unknown because things are changing so quickly right now?
Well, I think for employers, I think it's bringing in the students and having that direct working relationship with them. I caution a little bit around the word that they're mentoring, but they're definitely alongside coaching and encouraging the students. They also get to really see and understand what this generation brings. I think it's easy for all the generations to look at the other generations and say, oh, well, they're just, they're like this, and roll their eyes a little bit. And that creates a negative perception. And I think every time I work with students, I'm always impressed with the fresh ideas, skills, and abilities that they bring. And it helps me also think that, some of the things that they really value about work-life balance, I value that too. And how can we collectively begin to learn from one another and appreciate the different generations? I believe that employers begin to look at how will they want to adapt their own workplaces to meet the needs of this generation of workers, but also benefit from the skills that they're bringing, because they do think and have had different experiences than those of us with a few more years under our belt.
And they're not as rigid in terms of the system, because we all learn to work within a system, and they're dropping in on the system, and that brings very different perspectives.
Yeah. And I think the diverse nature of their own experiences, and at Waterloo we have a lot of students from a wide variety of backgrounds and perspectives, and a lot of the social changes that have happened over the last 10, 15, 20 years. There's a huge radical change in how we function together as groups. And I think focusing on the skills and abilities of individuals allows us to bring that diversity of perspective and ideas and values into our workplaces so that we can better meet the needs of our communities in which we're living and serving.
Anything to add, Ben?
I will say that I think engagement is a reciprocal relationship between an employer, an institution, and a student. And we're at our best, students are at their best, and I think employers will be at their best when we work collaboratively to create that mechanism that supports the student development, that supports the institutional goals, and supports the employer's needs. The mechanisms and the engine that can create for our industry partners is really meaningful from the perspective of all the things we've talked about, whether it be students and how they move throughout their career, whether it be the solutions, fresh ideas, new skills, new abilities that students are bringing, whether it's the future employers or future students that will become the employment force there. All of those pieces come together when we're all working in synergy, essentially. And that occurs best when we allow for students to learn, develop, and grow in these roles. We leverage the sequential nature of our various programs. We see students go through those opportunities. We create opportunities for them to reflect on their experiences, building those components in, having conversations about student performance evaluations throughout a co-op term, as opposed to a moment in time. But even when it is just a moment in time, that's still going to occur sequentially because they'll get it at multiple employment points. All of those pieces, I think, when they come together is when each of us as a stakeholder, as a partner in our students' development, in the industry and partners' needs, all those things when they come together are what create the machine that is our engagement structure.
Thanks for tuning in to our conversation with Director of Student and Faculty Relations and Cooperative Education, Dr. Richard Wikkerink, and Senior Manager, Work Integrated Learning Programs, Ben McDonald. Subscribe so that you can listen to future podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud, or watch the full episode on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms so you can stay up to date with what's happening with cooperative and experiential education. You'll find the links in the show notes. Join us again for the next episode of Work, Learn, Repeat.